Pisces, welcome to Mary's Angel Tarot. This is a general reading for Pisces Sun, Moon, Rising, and Venus. Okay, Pisces, let's get started. There's a convergence happening around you right now that I need you to take seriously. Not the kind of convergence that shows up regularly, not the ordinary intersections of people and timing that make up the normal fabric of a human life. This is something else entirely. Something that, in all my experience, in everything I've witnessed and felt and interpreted across 2 decades of sitting in this energy and reading what the spiritual field is communicating, I have never encountered with this level of intensity. And I'm not saying that to create drama or manufacture urgency where none exists. I'm saying it because it's the truth, and the truth deserves to be spoken plainly. The configuration of energies surrounding your life today is unprecedented. The specific combination of people, timing, and spiritual mechanics converging on this single point in your timeline is so rare, so precisely orchestrated, so staggeringly unlikely in its alignment, that encountering it feels less like reading a situation and more like witnessing a celestial event that won't repeat in this lifetime. 3 people are going to influence your destiny today, not vaguely, not eventually, not in the background of your life where influence operates invisibly and without your participation. 3 specific people, each carrying a distinct piece of a puzzle you didn't know was being assembled, are going to step into the center of your path and change its direction in ways that, by tomorrow morning, will have made today the most significant day you've lived in years, maybe ever. I need to start with something that might seem tangential, but is actually the foundation of everything else I'm going to say. You have been living beneath your own destiny, not beside it, not near it, beneath it. There is a trajectory that your life was designed to follow, a trajectory that reflects the full scope of who you are and what you're capable of, and what your particular combination of gifts and wounds and wisdom was meant to produce in this world. And you're not on that trajectory. You're on a lower one, a safer one. A trajectory that you settled onto not because it represents your truth, but because at some point, through some combination of circumstance and fear and practical compromise, you stepped down from the path you were meant to walk and onto a path that asked less of you. A path where the altitude was lower and the air was thicker, and the view was more limited, but the footing felt more secure. And you've been on that lower path for a while now, telling yourself it's fine, telling yourself that the view from here is good enough, telling yourself that the other path, the higher one, was always more fantasy than destination. But your body knows. Your body has been registering the altitude discrepancy the way a compass registers north, not through conscious calculation, but through an innate, involuntary awareness that this is not the right direction. The restlessness you've been feeling, the vague but persistent sense that something important is being missed, the way certain accomplishments that should feel satisfying feel hollow instead, as though you're receiving applause for a performance you gave in the wrong theater. All of that is the body's way of telling you that the path you're on, functional as it is, survivable as it is not the path. And today is the day the universe intervenes to correct the trajectory. Not gently, not through subtle suggestion. Through 3 people, each of whom is going to function as a specific instrument of realignment, recalibrating a different dimension of your life, and, in doing so, lifting you back to the altitude you were always supposed to be operating at. Let me tell you about the first person. This is someone who is already in your life, not a stranger, not a new arrival, someone whose presence has become so familiar that you've stopped truly seeing them. They exist in your daily or near daily landscape, a fixture, a given, a presence you've metabolized so completely that their significance has become invisible to you. The way the significance of oxygen is invisible, essential, but unexamined. This person has been holding a piece of information, not deliberately withholding it, holding it the way someone holds a gift they've been carrying for so long that they've almost forgotten it's in their hands. They didn't know the information was significant. They didn't realize that this thing they know, this detail they carry, this perspective they hold, was the missing element in an equation you've been trying to solve. But today, through some combination of conversational chance and divine orchestration, they're going to say something they might consider offhand, something that from their perspective is unremarkable, just a casual observation, just a passing thought, just one more sentence in the ongoing dialogue of your relationship. But from your perspective, from the perspective of the equation you've been trying to solve, the problem you've been trying to crack, the decision you've been trying to make, what they say is going to be the key. And I mean that with the full weight of the metaphor. A key, the kind that slides into a lock that's been rusted shut for so long you'd stopped trying to open it. The kind that turns with a click, so clean and so definitive that the sound itself feels like a sentence being completed, a question being answered, a chapter being concluded in a book you'd started to believe was permanently unfinished. What this person says to you today is going to unlock something that you have been standing in front of for months, maybe years, unable to access. And the unlocking is going to happen so fast, so seamlessly, that you're going to experience a moment of almost comic disbelief. That's it? That's what I was missing? That simple? And the answer is yes, that simple. Because the complexity was never in the answer. The complexity was in the timing. The answer itself was always straightforward. It was always right there, sitting in the mouth of someone you see every day, waiting for the exact moment when your receptivity and their expression would align precisely enough for the transfer to occur. That moment is today. The second person is different. This person is not in your inner circle. They may be on the periphery of your life, or they may be someone you encounter for the first time today in a context that seems entirely unremarkable. A professional interaction, a social introduction, a seemingly random crossing of paths in a location where you wouldn't normally expect anything significant to happen. This person carries an energy of disruption, and I use that word carefully because disruption can sound negative, and what this person brings is not negative, it's activating. They are going to say something or do something or simply be something in your presence that activates a part of you that has been lying dormant, a dormant ambition, a dormant creativity, a dormant capacity for risk that you shut down at some point because the circumstances of your life at the time couldn't support it, and the safer choice was to put it to sleep rather than let it run wild in an environment that would punish it. The second person doesn't know they're activating anything. They're just being themselves. But who they are, the way they move through the world, the energy they carry, the particular quality of confidence or creativity or unconventionality that defines their presence is going to brush against that dormant part of you like a hand brushing against a light switch in the dark. Click, and suddenly a room you forgot you had is illuminated. And in that illumination, you're going to see things you stored there a long time ago, dreams you packed away, ideas you shelved, versions of yourself that you carefully, lovingly, reluctantly folded and placed in storage because the life you were living didn't have closet space for them. They're all still there, dusty but intact, waiting. What makes this second person's influence so powerful is that it's not instructional. They're not going to sit you down and give you advice or tell you what to do with your life. They're not a mentor in the traditional sense. They're a mirror, a very specific kind of mirror that reflects not who you are right now, but who you could be if you stopped playing small. If you stopped operating from the lower trajectory. If you let the dormant parts of yourself wake up and integrate with the active parts and form a version of you that is so much more complete, so much more potent, so much more aligned with your actual capacity that the current version feels like a rough draft in comparison. This person is the finished draft, walking around in the world and seeing them, encountering their energy, registering the full-bodied aliveness of a person who is not living beneath their own destiny, is going to stir something in you that no amount of self-help or meditation or journaling could stir. Because it's one thing to read about potential, it's another thing entirely to stand next to it. To breathe the same air as someone who is fully occupying the space they were designed for. The proximity alone is transformative. And you're going to feel it in your body as a restlessness that is different from the usual restlessness. This one doesn't feel like anxiety. It feels like hunger, like waking up. The third person. The third person is the one I need to talk about most carefully because their influence is the most complex and the most emotionally charged, and the one most likely to be misunderstood if I don't frame it properly. The third person is someone connected to your emotional life, your intimate world, the private territory of your heart where you are most vulnerable and most real. This person might be a romantic interest, a former partner, a close friend, a family member, someone whose opinion of you carries weight that no stranger's opinion could carry, weight that settles into your bones and lives there, shaping the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you allow yourself to dream or don't allow yourself to dream based on what you believe this person sees when they look at you. The third person is going to do something today that challenges your deepest narrative about yourself. The narrative that sits at the basement level of your psychology, beneath the conscious beliefs, beneath the stated values, beneath the things you say about yourself when people ask. The narrative I'm talking about is the one that runs silently in the background of your operating system, the one that was written in childhood or adolescence or during one of those defining moments of early adulthood where something happened that imprinted itself so deeply into your identity that it became invisible, not through resolution, but through integration. It became part of you, part of how you see yourself, part of what you believe you deserve, part of the ceiling you've placed on your own life without realizing you placed it. This third person is going to say or do something that directly contradicts that basement level narrative. And the contradiction is not going to be abstract. It's not going to be a general affirmation or a vague compliment that your defenses can easily deflect. It's going to be specific, pointed, aimed, whether intentionally or not, at the exact spot where the old narrative lives. And when it hits that spot, you're going to feel something destabilize in a way that is simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. Like someone pulled a brick out of a wall you forgot was there, and through the gap you can see a landscape you've never seen before, vast and open and full of possibility that the wall was blocking. The wall was built to protect you. But what it was protecting you from and what it was protecting you from seeing are two different things. It was protecting you from pain, but it was also protecting you from the view. And the view, the one you're going to catch a glimpse of through the gap that the third person's action creates, the view is your life without the ceiling, your life at full altitude. Your life as it was designed to be lived before the narrative convinced you to settle for less. Now I need to talk about why these three people are converging on the same day, because the simultaneity is not incidental. It's the architecture. Any one of these influences in isolation would be significant. The key from the first person alone would change things. The activation from the second person alone would shift the energy. The narrative disruption from the third person alone would open new territory. But none of them individually would be enough to produce the specific outcome that the universe is engineering today. The outcome requires all three, because the three influences are not parallel forces acting independently, they're interconnected. They're three components of a single mechanism, and the mechanism doesn't function unless all three components engage simultaneously. Think of it this way. The first person gives you information that changes what you know. The second person activates a capacity that changes what you can do. The third person disrupts a narrative that changes what you believe you deserve. Knowledge, capacity, belief. Those are the three pillars of any fundamental life change. You need all three. Knowing without capacity is frustration. Capacity without belief is paralysis. Belief without knowledge is delusion. But all three together, knowledge and capacity and belief aligned and activated on the same day, in the same life, at the same moment, that's not just change, that's ignition. That's the moment the rocket stops sitting on the launch pad and begins to lift. And once it lifts, once all three pillars are in place and the system engages, the trajectory is no longer optional. The trajectory is inevitable. You don't go back to the lower path after that. You can't. Because the lower path was only sustainable as long as one of the three pillars was missing. As long as you didn't know, or couldn't act, or didn't believe, today all three of those barriers fall. And with nothing left to hold you at the lower altitude, the ascent begins. I want to go deeper into what this feels like in real time, because I think preparing for the emotional experience is as important as understanding the mechanics. Today is going to feel strange. Not strange in a bad way. Strange in the way that dreams feel strange, where the logic is slightly different from waking logic and the connections between events don't follow the usual rules of cause and effect. You're going to notice an unusual density to the day, a thickness, as though the minutes contain more than they usually contain, as though each interaction is heavier with significance than normal interactions. You might find yourself pausing more often, noticing things you don't usually notice, a color, a sound, the expression on someone's face, the weight of a word. You're going to feel throughout the day the subtle but unmistakable sensation of being watched, not by a person, by a process, as though the universe itself is leaning in, paying closer attention than usual, adjusting variables in real time to ensure that the three encounters happen in the right sequence and at the right intensity and with the right emotional conditions. Because the sequence matters. The order in which these three people influence you is not random, it's choreographed. The first person comes first because the information needs to be in place before the activation can occur. You need to know the thing before you can act on it. Then the second person activates the capacity to act. But the action won't happen. The capacity will remain potential rather than kinetic until the third person removes the belief barrier. The belief barrier is the last to fall because it's the deepest. It's the most defended. It's the one that has been in place the longest and has the most structural support. It takes the combined force of new information and activated capacity to create the conditions under which the belief barrier can be challenged at all. And even then, it takes a specific person, someone with emotional access to your deepest layers, to deliver the challenge in a way that penetrates rather than bounces off. There's something I want to address about the nature of destiny because the word appears in the title and I think it deserves careful handling. Destiny is not a fixed point. It's not a predetermined outcome that you're being dragged toward by invisible chains regardless of your choices. Destiny is a potential. It's the highest expression of what your life could become if all the variables aligned and all the barriers fell and you operated at full capacity from a place of accurate self-knowledge and unlimited self-belief. Most people never reach their destiny because one or more of those conditions is never met. They live their entire lives with a missing pillar, a gap in the trinity of knowledge, capacity, and belief that keeps them at a lower altitude, a lower expression, a reduced version of the life that was possible. They're not unhappy necessarily, they're functional, they're fine, but fine and fulfilled are different countries. And many people live their whole lives as citizens of fine without ever obtaining a passport to fulfilled. Today is the day you get the passport, not metaphorically, energetically. The convergence of these three people on this single day is the universe's way of issuing you a travel document that says you are cleared for the higher altitude. You have the knowledge, you have the capacity, and after today you'll have the belief. All that remains is the willingness to board the flight. And that willingness, I should be clear, is the one thing the universe can't provide. The three people can deliver their pieces. The timing can align. The pillars can all be erected, but you have to walk between them. You have to step into the structure they create and let it hold you. That step is yours. That choice is yours. And it's the only variable in this entire cosmic equation that cannot be controlled by anything outside of your own free will. Let me return to the first person and go deeper, because I think there are details here that will help you recognize the encounter when it happens. This person has no idea what they're about to do. No awareness whatsoever that a casual comment of theirs is going to function as a skeleton key in your life. And that's part of what makes this so remarkable. The universe doesn't always work through people who know they're working for the universe. Sometimes the most powerful instruments of change are people who are just being themselves, just saying what they think, just sharing what they know with no awareness that what they know is the exact piece of information that someone else's entire next chapter depends on. The information they share might seem, in the moment, to be about something else entirely. It might be framed as a story about their own experience, an anecdote about someone they know, a practical detail about a process or a system or a situation that they mention in passing because it's relevant to the conversation but not, from their perspective, earth-shattering. And you might not even recognize its significance immediately. It might take a beat, a few seconds of processing, a moment where the words land and then sink beneath the surface and then detonate at a depth that the surface level conversation never touches. You'll feel it, a quiet click inside your understanding. The sensation of a piece sliding into place, and then the cascade begins. The rapid-fire sequence of connections and implications and suddenly obvious conclusions that radiates outward from that single piece of information, like ripples from a stone thrown into still water. When the cascade starts, don't try to stop it, don't try to organize it, don't try to immediately translate it into action steps or plans or conclusions. Let it ripple. Let the information find its own way through the terrain of your understanding, touching everything it touches, revealing everything it reveals, without your managerial intervention. Your mind is going to want to grab it and control it and direct it into familiar channels, resist that impulse. The information is smarter than your management. It knows where to go. It knows what to connect to. It knows which long-held assumptions to challenge and which dusty mental files to illuminate. Let it work. Let it ripple. Watch where it goes. And pay attention with the quality of attention you'd give to a firework display, to the things that light up as the ripples pass through them. Those lit up things are the coordinates of your next chapter. The second person is going to enter your day with an energy that you're going to feel before you fully register their significance. Something about their presence, their comportment, the way they occupy space is going to create a kind of atmospheric pressure change in the room. Not intimidation, not the heavy constricting pressure that comes from being around someone who dominates. More like the pressure change that comes when a window is opened in a sealed room. The air shifts. Something that was stale becomes fresh. Something that was static becomes dynamic. And you, in their presence, are going to feel a corresponding shift in your own internal atmosphere. A stirring, a waking. A part of you that was lying on its back staring at the ceiling of its own dormancy is going to sit up and look around and say, what is that? What's that energy? Why does it feel like something I recognize even though I've never felt exactly this before? What you're recognizing is your own unlived potential reflected back at you through the mirror of someone who is living theirs. And the recognition is going to be bittersweet. Bitter because it illuminates the gap between where you are and where you could be. Sweet because it confirms that the gap is not permanent. It can be closed. The potential is not dead. It's dormant. And dormant is not the same as dead. Dormant means sleeping. Dormant means waiting for the right conditions. Dormant means alive but suspended. And the activation energy required to convert dormant to active is exactly what this second person provides, not through anything they do for you, but through what they embody in front of you. Living proof that the thing you put to sleep can be woken, that the version of yourself you folded and stored still fits, that the trajectory you stepped down from still exists and is still accessible and is in fact the only trajectory that leads to the destination your soul was built for. Now the third person. I've been building to this because the third person's influence is the deepest and the most transformative and also the most likely to catch you off guard. This person knows you in the way that only someone who has been granted access to your inner world can know you. They've seen your unguarded face. They've heard your uncensored thoughts. They've witnessed you in states of vulnerability that you don't show the general population. And because they know you in this intimate way, their words carry a penetrative power that no stranger's words could match. When a stranger says something affirming about you, it lands on the surface and feels nice. When this person says something, it bypasses the surface entirely and goes straight to the deep structure, to the basement level narrative, to the place where the real beliefs live. What this person does today is going to seem from the outside like a small moment, an unremarkable exchange in the larger context of your relationship with them. But from the inside, from the perspective of the belief system that governs your self-concept, it's going to be seismic. They're going to reflect something back to you about who you are that directly opposes the story you've been telling yourself. And the reflection is going to be so clear, so specific, so obviously grounded in genuine perception rather than flattery or obligation, that your usual defense mechanisms are going to malfunction. The shields that normally intercept positive input and convert it into yeah, but won't activate fast enough, The deflection reflex that usually transforms I see something extraordinary in you into they're just being nice won't engage. For one undefended moment, you're going to receive what this person is offering without filtration. And what they're offering is a vision of you that is larger than the version you've been inhabiting. Here's what I want you to understand about this moment, because I think its significance can't be overstated. The belief barrier I mentioned, the basement level narrative that caps your potential and keeps you at the lower altitude, that barrier was not installed by logic. It was installed by experience. By moments in your early life where you learned, not through instruction, but through the raw education of emotional experience, that you are not the kind of person who gets to have the big life, the expansive life, the life that matches the full scope of your capacity. Maybe you learned it from a parent whose own unfulfilled potential made them subtly, unconsciously hostile to yours. Maybe you learned it from a peer environment that punished ambition or height or differentness. Maybe you learned it from a single devastating moment where you reached for something beyond your known territory and were slapped back so hard that the reverberations echoed through every subsequent choice you made, keeping you within the borders of the small, familiar, painfully insufficient zone that the slap defined as your rightful territory. Whatever the specific origin, the belief was installed experientially. And experiential beliefs can only be dislodged experientially, not by reading about self-worth, not by repeating affirmations, not by understanding intellectually that the belief is false. Experiential beliefs require experiential contradictions. They require a moment of lived experience that is powerful enough and specific enough and emotionally weighted enough to overwrite the original imprint. And the third person today is going to provide that moment, not because they're trying to heal you, because who they are and what they see and how they express what they see happens to carry exactly the right frequency to interfere with the frequency of the old belief. The two frequencies cancel each other out. And in the silence that follows the cancellation, in the brief, stunning absence of the narrative that has been running in the background of your psyche for as long as you can remember, you're going to hear something you haven't heard before. Nothing. Beautiful, expansive, liberating nothing. The absence of the voice that says you can't. The absence of the ceiling. The absence of the limitation that was never a fact about you, but a conclusion drawn from insufficient evidence and then mistaken for a permanent feature of reality. That silence is your launch window. The moment where all three influences converge, where knowledge and capacity and belief align simultaneously, and the full force of your unlived potential becomes available to you in a single unified surge. And the surge is going to feel like nothing you've experienced before. Not excitement exactly, although excitement will be part of it. More like pressure, internal pressure. The pressure of something that has been compressed into too small a space, suddenly finding room to expand. You're going to feel physically larger. Not taller, not wider, but more present, more dense with aliveness, more real, as though the previous version of you was a sketch and the version emerging today is painted in oil, thick and textured and permanent. I want to talk about what happens after the three encounters, because the convergence is not the end of something, it's the beginning. And the beginning requires navigation that I want to help you prepare for. Once all three pillars are in place, once you have the knowledge and the capacity and the belief, you're going to face a choice that is both very simple and very difficult. The choice is this: do you act? Do you take the knowledge you've received activate the capacity that's been woken, believe the belief that's been unlocked, and actually move. Actually change something. Actually step off the lower path and begin the ascent to the higher one? Or do you do what you've done before, which is receive the insight, feel the activation, glimpse the possibility, and then slowly, gradually, almost imperceptibly allow the old patterns to reassert themselves, the old narrative to reinstall, the old altitude to reclaim you, through the gravitational pull of familiarity and habit and the deep, seductive comfort of a life that asks nothing extraordinary of you. I'm not asking that question to pressure you. I'm asking it because I want you to see it clearly, to see that the choice point is coming and to enter it with awareness rather than sleepwalking through it the way you might have sleepwalked through similar moments in the past. Because there have been similar moments, not with this level of convergence, not with this unprecedented alignment of forces, but there have been moments in your life where a window opened and you felt the fresh air and you moved toward the opening, and then something, fear, doubt, the gravitational pull of the known pulled you back before you could climb through, and the window closed and you returned to the lower altitude. And the memory of what you glimpsed through the opening became another piece of evidence that the higher path exists but isn't for you. Another confirmation of the basement level belief that the big life, the fulfilled life, the life at full altitude is something you can see but not inhabit. Today's window is different. Today's window is being held open by 3 separate forces, and the combined strength of those forces is greater than the gravitational pull of your old patterns. The universe has, in a very real sense, stacked the deck in your favor. It has assembled the precise combination of people and timing and energetic conditions that gives you the best possible chance of actually climbing through, of actually choosing the higher path, of actually stepping into the destiny that has been patiently, faithfully, stubbornly waiting for you to claim it despite your repeated detours into settling. But the universe can't climb through the window for you. It can hold it open. It can show you what's on the other side. It can send 3 specific people to equip you with every tool you need for the crossing. But the crossing itself, that final step from the ledge of the known into the open air of the possible, that has to be yours. And it has to be made with the full understanding that the air on the other side is unfamiliar and the ground is untested, and the certainty you currently stand on, limited as it is, will not be available once you step off it. The crossing requires a willingness to trade certainty for possibility, security for significance, the known with all its comfortable limitations for the unknown with all its terrifying freedoms. Something I want to illuminate here is the specific role that each of these 3 people plays, not just today, but in the ongoing architecture of your life. Because this isn't a one-day event that has no lasting consequence. The influence of each person extends beyond today into the weeks and months that follow, and the nature of that extended influence is worth understanding. The first person, the one with the information, becomes a resource, not just today, going forward. What they know, what they share, what they have access to, these things remain available to you after today. And you're going to find yourself returning to this person with a new appreciation for the kind of value they bring. Conversations that previously felt routine are going to start feeling rich. Interactions that seemed superficial are going to reveal unexpected depth, because now you know what this person carries. Now you've seen the key they hold. And the awareness of that key changes the way you engage with them turning a relationship you took for granted into a resource you treat with the respect and the intentionality it deserves. The second person, the activator, becomes a compass. Not a guide, because they're not telling you where to go, but a reference point, a reminder. Every time you're tempted to retreat into dormancy, every time the old patterns try to pull you back into the reduced version, the memory of this person's energy, the felt experience of standing next to someone who is fully alive and fully expressed and fully occupying their potential, that memory becomes a compass, heading that orients you toward your own full expression. You might not see this person regularly. You might not develop an ongoing relationship with them, but their influence persists because it was imprinted. The activation they triggered left a permanent mark on your nervous system, a new setting, a new baseline of aliveness that your body remembers even when your mind tries to forget. The third person, the belief disruptor, becomes something more intimate and more complex. Because this person is already in your inner world, the disruption they create today doesn't end when the day ends. It reverberates through the ongoing relationship. It changes the dynamic. It introduces a new element into the way you see each other, a new depth, a new honesty, a new willingness to reflect things back to each other that were previously too tender or too significant to be spoken. The third person's influence is the one most likely to generate further conversations, further disruptions, further expansions. They've opened a door that isn't going to close again, and what passes through that door over time is going to reshape the relationship itself into something more honest and more nourishing than what existed before today. Now, I want to talk about something that I've been sensing throughout this entire message and that I think needs to be named explicitly. There's a resistance in you, not to the message itself, to the implication that you've been living below your potential, that the life you've built, the choices you've made, the path you've been walking, all of it amounts to settling. Because settling implies that you had a choice and you chose wrong. And you're not sure you did have a choice. You're not sure the higher path was ever really available. You're not sure the potential is real. You're not sure, you're not just a person with ordinary gifts living an ordinary life and doing the best they can with what they have. And all this talk of destiny and convergence and unprecedented alignment is just spiritual language projected onto what is, at the end of the day, a perfectly average Tuesday. I hear that resistance. I respect it. It's the voice of a realism that has kept you grounded and functional in a world that doesn't always reward dreamers. But I want to gently push back on it. Because the resistance is not just realism. It's the old narrative talking. The basement level belief, the one the third person is going to challenge, is the very belief that generates this resistance. The belief that says you're not the kind of person this message is really about, that the universe doesn't organize unprecedented convergences for people like you, that destiny is a concept that applies to special people, exceptional people, people with obvious, visible, undeniable gifts, and you, with your quiet, internal, easily overlooked gifts, are not in that category. That belief is the wall. And today is the day the wall cracks. I also want to address something about the relationship between these three influences and the financial dimension of your life, because I'm picking up a strong signal here that shouldn't be ignored. The trajectory correction that today initiates has material consequences. Not immediately, perhaps, but inevitably. When you shift from a lower trajectory to a higher one, the economic landscape of your life shifts with it. Not because the universe magically deposits money into your account, but because the higher trajectory positions you differently in the flow of resources. It opens channels of opportunity that the lower trajectory didn't have access to. It connects you to people and systems and possibilities that operate at a different economic level. The first person's information has practical, potentially financial implications. The second person's activating energy touches an area of your life that has earning potential you haven't tapped. And the third person's belief disruption, by removing the cap you've placed on what you think you deserve, simultaneously removes the cap you've placed on what you're willing to pursue, earn, and receive. Money follows alignment. That's not a metaphysical platitude. It's a practical observation. When a person is operating below their capacity, they're also operating below their earning potential. They take jobs that are beneath their skill level because they don't believe they qualify for better. They charge less than they're worth because they've internalized a narrative about their value that doesn't match their actual market value. They pass up financial opportunities because the opportunities exist at the higher altitude and they've settled at the lower one where such opportunities are simply not visible. Today's convergence corrects the visibility. It puts you at an altitude where the opportunities that were always there but previously above your sightline become suddenly, strikingly apparent. Let me bring all of this together now because the threads are numerous and I want to make sure the tapestry is visible. Today, 3 people converge on your life. The first unlocks knowledge. The second activates capacity. The third disrupts belief. Together, they remove the 3 barriers that have been keeping you at a lower altitude, a lower trajectory, a lower expression of the life you were designed to live. The removal of these barriers creates a launch window, a brief, specific, unprecedented opening through which you can ascend from the path you've been walking to the path you were meant to walk. The window is held open by forces that have been aligning for longer than you know, moving pieces into position, timing encounters, calibrating conditions with a precision that, having sat in this energy for over 2 decades, I can tell you I have genuinely never encountered at this level of specificity and power. You didn't attract this through willpower or manifestation techniques or spiritual merit. You attracted it by being ready. And readiness in this context doesn't mean prepared, it means ripe. Like a fruit that has been slowly, invisibly maturing through seasons of sun and rain and cold and waiting, and has finally reached the precise degree of ripeness where it can be picked. Not a day before, the fruit would have been sour. Not a day after, it would have begun to turn. Today, this precise point, the ripeness and the hand arriving at the same moment, that's what's happening. And the 3 people are the hand. There is one more thing I want to say, and it has to do with the experience of destiny itself. Because I've used that word throughout this message, and I want to make sure you understand what I mean by it in a way that feels real and grounded rather than mystical and vague. Your destiny is not a throne you sit on. It's not a crown you wear. It's not a static state of having arrived and being done. Your destiny is a mode of living, a way of being in the world that aligns the external expression of your life with the internal truth of who you are. It's the state where what you do matches what you were built for, where how you spend your days reflects who you actually are rather than who you learn to pretend to be, where the gap between your inner reality and your outer circumstances closes to 0 and you experience for the first time the profound, almost shocking peace of a life that fits. That peace is what's available to you today. Not the peace of having nothing to worry about, the peace of knowing that what you're worrying about is the right thing to worry about. That the problems you're solving are your problems. The challenges you're facing are your challenges. The path you're walking is your path. The specific, irreducible, non-negotiable piece of a person who has stopped living someone else's life and started living their own. That's destiny. And it's not a destination you reach and stay. It's a frequency you tune into and maintain. And maintaining it requires exactly the three things that today provides: accurate knowledge of your situation, active capacity to respond to it, and the deep, barrier-free belief that you deserve the frequency, that it's yours, that it was always yours, that the only thing standing between you and the life you were designed for was a wall that three specific people on one specific day were always going to help you bring down. This message reaching you through Mary's Angel Tarot is itself part of the convergence, not a fourth element, a frame, the context that holds the three encounters in place and gives them meaning. Without this awareness, the encounters might still happen, but their significance might be missed. The information from the first person might be heard but not applied. The activation from the second person might be felt but not sustained. The belief disruption from the third person might be experienced but not integrated. The awareness you're gaining right now through this message is the soil that the three seeds are about to be planted in. And the soil matters. Seeds planted in unprepared ground don't root. Seeds planted in soil that has been turned and softened and made receptive, those seeds become forests. You are being prepared right now, in this moment, as these words move through your mind and settle into your body. You are being made ready to receive what today brings. Not through magic, through awareness, through the simple, powerful act of knowing what to look for, knowing what to feel for, knowing that the three people who cross your path today are not random characters in the background of your life, but essential instruments of a realignment that has been decades in the making and that culminates with an intensity and a specificity that I have never before encountered in 20 years of this work, in the next 24 hours of your existence. 3 people, 1 day, a lifetime of trajectory, correction, compressed into a single revolution of the earth: knowledge, capacity, belief. The 3 pillars of the life you were always supposed to be living, erected simultaneously by 3 human beings who don't know each other, don't know what they're building, and don't know that the architecture they're contributing to is the most important structure you will ever inhabit. Pay attention today to everything, to the offhand comment that seems insignificant, to the stranger whose energy makes something stir in your chest, to the intimate moment with someone who knows you deeply enough to reach the place where the old story lives. These are not ordinary moments. These are the hinges of your destiny swinging open. And what walks through when they do, what emerges from behind the doors that these 3 people unlock, is the version of you that the universe has been patiently, stubbornly, unwaveringly building toward since the day you were born. That version is ready. The question is whether you are. I think you are. I think that's why you're here. I think the fact that you found this message on this day, at this exact point in the unfolding of your story, is itself the answer. You're here because you're ready. You're ready because you're here. The circle is closed. The convergence is now. Walk into it with your eyes open and your heart uncapped and the full, terrifying, magnificent weight of your own potential sitting on your shoulders like a mantle you were born to wear. Today is the day you start wearing it. All right, Thank you so much for watching Mary's Angel Tarot. Take care of your energy, and I'll see you in the next reading. Bye.